In the 16th century, owning a dovecote was a status symbol for Britain's elite, and pigeon poop was a valuable commodity, often as expensive as silver. But somewhere down the line, pigeons slowly turned from prized birds to city pests. How did that happen? Hello, and welcome to Curiosity Factor. Today, we're bringing you the interesting history of dovecotes, pigeons, and their poop, which apparently is property of the British Crown. It all started in the mid-1500s, when chemists in Nuremberg discovered that pigeon poop was a rich source of saltpeter, an ingredient that was vital for making gunpowder. As a consequence, for several decades, pigeon droppings became almost as valuable as silver. Understandably, the idea of cashing in on this bonanza swiftly gripped the nation. By the middle of the following century, there were an estimated 26,000 dovecotes in Britain. Fewer than 400 survive today. Nowadays, dovecotes are mostly ornamental, but back then they were a vital source of meat, eggs, and even feathers. In fact, pigeon feathers were rather a valuable commodity, because it was believed that those who slept on a mattress stuffed with pigeon feathers would live to a ripe old age. Meanwhile, dung gathered from the dovecotes was a rich fertiliser, which could also be used to tan leather. That was before it was discovered that it was a crucial ingredient in gunpowder. And so the dovecote became not only a source of food and revenue, but also a status symbol. The privilege of building or owning dovecotes was usually reserved for barons, abbots, and lords of the manor, and the right was granted by none other than the monarch. Of course, those who were lucky enough to be allowed to build a dovecote usually opted to place it in a prominent place so that passerby could see it. Because what's the point of having it and not flaunting it, right? But towards the end of her reign, Queen Elizabeth I decided to open pigeon breeding to the free market. Now anyone with enough money and land could build a columbarium, dovecote. As a consequence of this change in the law, dovecotes sprang up all over the countryside. The building craze was given fresh impetus by the value of saltpeter. The dovecote quickly became something for the fashionable gentleman to show off to his friends, along with his silk ruff and long dueling rapier. It was said that at this time the country home of the trendy young squire was incomplete without a dovecote, a pair of butts for archery, and a bowling alley. Saltpeter, the compound found in pigeon droppings, became so important later on that King George I of England declared that all droppings were now property of the Crown. Strict regulations were put in place on dovecotes in order to ensure that the poop was contained accordingly. During that time, it was not unusual to see armed guards standing outside dovecotes in order to protect not the pigeons, but rather their droppings. Pigeons were also used for winter meat, but that soon came to an end, thanks to the work of Charles Turnip Townshend, who introduced the turnip as a means of keeping livestock fat enough through the colder months. Later, vast quantities of natural saltpeter were discovered in Chile, and the territory known today as California, which also destroyed the value of pigeon poop as a chemical resource. So with those discoveries and changes in agriculture, keeping pigeons was no longer necessary, nor profitable. During the 18th and 19th centuries, around 95% of Britain's dovecotes fell into disuse and were demolished. Now homeless, the tens of thousands of pigeons that had once inhabited the dovecotes flew off to find somewhere else to live. A species that in the wild had nested on cliffs, the birds discovered that Britain's rapidly growing towns and cities were full of the sort of rock faces they liked to roost on. Humans called them buildings. And so, these once elite and coveted birds settled there. Over time, they've become feral urban pigeon that we know today. But still, as far as we know, their poop continues to belong to the British Crown. There is no evidence that the legislation got changed. However, it is important to warn you that today pigeon droppings are considered to be very dangerous. Ornithosis, listeria, E. coli, and other nasty pathogens can be passed through droppings, as well as the birds themselves. What's worse is that when dry, the droppings can become airborne and lead to respiratory issues, such as psittacosis and the cryptococcus fungus. Despite that, some people still keep pigeons as pets, and even continue to breed them for their meat. There are plenty of fine dining restaurants which still serve pigeon meat as a delicacy during the winter months. Of course, the pigeons these restaurants receive are healthy and well taken care of. Would you try a pigeon dish? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you enjoy learning fun and interesting facts, make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again in our next video.